Love is not just a feeling. It's not a fleeting emotion that comes and goes like waves on the surface of the ocean. Love, in its purest form, is energy. It is a frequency that moves beyond what the eyes can see and the ears can hear. It operates at a higher dimension, above the chaos of your circumstances and the noise of your self-doubt. His love, unseen, often misunderstood, is not like human love, which can be fickle, conditional, and based on behavior. His love exists in a realm that cannot be altered by mood swings, by your past mistakes, or by how broken you feel right now. When we think of love as a feeling, we trap ourselves in a cycle of validation. We start to look for signs and proof that we're worthy of it. If someone compliments us, we feel a little better. If we get ignored or criticized, suddenly we believe we're unworthy, unloved, forgotten. That's the danger of defining love through emotion, but his love doesn't function on that level. You see, the frequency of love is not waiting on your approval. It's not waiting on your agreement. It's not affected by your pain. It's already tuned into your highest good. It doesn't broadcast fear. It doesn't speak in the language of guilt. It's consistent, unwavering, strong, even when you are not. This is where people get lost. They confuse the absence of good feelings with the absence of love. They believe that because they're not happy, they're not loved. Because they're struggling, they must have been forgotten. But real love isn't visible through the lens of comfort. It's most powerful in the silence, in the quiet spaces where your heart is tired, where the tears fall, and where nothing makes sense. Love is still there. His love doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to show off. It doesn't need to convince you. It's simply present, a steady, quiet force anchoring you when everything else around you is pulling apart. His love is stronger than you think because it's not based on your efforts. You didn't earn it through good behavior, and you won't lose it through pain or failure. That alone should change the entire way you see yourself. Think about how you view love when it's tied to performance. You start to live in fear. Fear of failing, fear of disappointing, fear of being left behind. That fear gives birth to anxiety, to insecurity, to toxic patterns. But when you begin to understand that love is energy, a frequency that moves constantly toward your healing and your restoration, it changes how you show up in the world. You begin to walk lighter. You begin to speak softer. You begin to believe in your value, not because of what you've done, but because of what's been done for you. The world will always try to pull you into the emotional realm. It will teach you to chase feelings, to chase approval, to chase validation. But those things come and go. One day you'll feel on top of the world, the next you'll feel invisible. That's not love, that's emotional dependency. Love isn't dependent on how others treat you. His love doesn't change based on what you think about yourself. It is a truth that exists even when you can't recognize it. It's a force that works on your behalf even when you don't understand it. Now imagine for a moment that love is a radio signal. You don't have to create the frequency. It already exists. You don't have to make it stronger. It already carries power. Your only job is to tune into it. When you stop long enough to quiet your mind, when you sit still in the middle of your fear and simply allow yourself to receive it, that's when you start to hear it. Not with your ears, but with your soul. You begin to feel the weight lift. You begin to breathe differently. You begin to sense that something far greater than your circumstances is holding you together. That's not imagination, that's alignment. You're tuning into something real, something unbreakable, something stronger than your pain. The power of his love is not shown through ease, it's revealed through endurance. When you've hit rock bottom, when you've cried yourself to sleep, when you've asked the sky for answers and only heard silence, and yet somehow you're still here, that's not by accident. That's not because of luck. That's because love caught you before the fall destroyed you. His love sustained you in the dark. Even when your own mind tried to convince you that you were unworthy, something kept fighting for you. Something kept reminding you that this isn't the end. That's love in motion. That's love as a frequency, not a mood, not a compliment, not a temporary high. It's the real kind, the kind that never stops broadcasting, even when the world grows cold. When you begin to see love not as a transaction but as transformation, you no longer chase people to prove your worth. You no longer beg for attention to feel validated. You no longer sink when others walk away. Why? Because you realize you're already standing on something far more stable than emotions. You're standing on a frequency of power, rooted in love, pulsing through your spirit, speaking over your doubts. That's what makes his love stronger than you think. It's not louder, it's deeper, it's not always visible, but it's always working. Your worth was established long before your heart was ever broken. Before a single disappointment touched your life, before rejection ever knocked on your door, before betrayal carved scars into your soul, your value was already complete, unchanged, untouched, and fully intact. You were created with meaning, designed with intention, and formed with power that no mistake, heartbreak, or abandonment could ever erase. But pain has a way of making you forget. When you're hurting, when the weight of your past is pressing down on your chest, when someone you gave your all to leaves without explanation, your mind starts to question what your heart used to know. You begin to wonder what's wrong with me, or why wasn't I enough? But these questions don't reflect truth. They reflect trauma. The illusion is that your value is somehow tied to how others treat you. If they love you, you must be lovable. If they abandon you, maybe you were never worth it. But that's not how real worth works. Real worth isn't given by people, so it can't be taken by people. It was woven into your being by design, not by experience. That's why no matter what you've gone through, no matter who walked away, who broke you, who lied to you, your worth remains untouched. You may feel shattered, but you are not reduced. You may feel empty, but you are not less. You are still whole in places people never even saw. The problem is, the world teaches you to measure your value through outcomes. Did they stay? Did you win? Did it work out? Were you chosen? And if the answer is no, you start to doubt yourself. You begin carrying shame like it's truth. You internalize the loss as if it defines you. But losing something doesn't mean you were never worthy of it. It simply means the thing that left you was not equipped to handle the power that lives in you. And oftentimes, your growth requires separation. Sometimes your elevation demands isolation, not because you're unworthy, but because your destiny is bigger than the space you were trying to fit into. When your heart breaks, the voice of insecurity gets louder. You replay every conversation. You analyze every decision. You try to decode silence and make sense of distance. All of it in the hope that you'll find the reason they didn't choose you. But what if the real reason had nothing to do with you? What if their exit was protection, not punishment? What if their rejection was the door to your redirection? See, you don't need people to validate what's already true. You don't need anyone to confirm the blueprint that was stamped on your soul from the beginning. And you certainly don't need broken people to define your identity when they haven't even discovered their own. The pain you've experienced doesn't discount your worth. It reveals it. You don't get attacked in life unless there's something powerful inside you. The fact that you've felt the sting of betrayal, the ache of loneliness, the confusion of sudden change, that means there's something inside you worth fighting over. The enemy doesn't waste energy on what doesn't matter. And life doesn't test what isn't destined to be used. That broken heart, that deep hurt, those sleepless nights, they're not signs of your weakness. They're evidence of your strength. You are still here. You are still breathing, and despite everything that tried to destroy you, you are still standing. That alone speaks volumes about your worth. You were never created to beg for love. You were never designed to chase affection. Love is drawn to wholeness, and wholeness begins with knowing who you are, not what happened to you. You are not the sum total of your heartbreaks. You are not defined by who left or who didn't see your value. If someone couldn't recognize your worth, it doesn't mean you have none. It simply means they were never equipped to carry the weight of your presence. Some people were only meant to be lessons, not lifelines. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you stop tying your identity to those who couldn't even understand themselves. You were valuable before the pain. You were powerful before the silence. You were chosen before the abandonment. Your story didn't begin with heartbreak, and it certainly doesn't end there. Your worth was settled before you were ever tested, and nothing, no failure, no rejection, no loss, can undo what was already decided. The deeper your wound, the greater your capacity to heal, and healing doesn't make you weak. It proves just how strong you are, not because the pain didn't hurt, but because you refuse to let it define your future. You are not a mistake. You are not invisible. You are not forgotten. You were loved before they hurt you. You were worthy before they left you. And nothing anyone does can change what was already true when you first took your breath. You matter. You are enough, and your value has never been up for debate. Negative feelings are like fog, thick, suffocating, and confusing. They cloud your vision, distort your reality, and make it hard to see the truth that's standing right in front of you. But here's the truth most people forget. Feelings are not facts. Just because you feel unworthy doesn't mean you are. Just because you feel alone doesn't mean no one cares. Just because you feel lost doesn't mean you have no direction. Feelings are real, yes, but they are not always accurate. They are responses to thoughts, not confirmations of reality. And if you don't learn how to separate what you feel from what is true, your emotions will hold you hostage in cycles you were never meant to stay in. Most people let their feelings sit in the driver's seat of their lives. They wake up, and if they don't feel good, they assume the day will be bad. If someone ignores them, they assume they're not important. If they're rejected, they assume they're not enough. But all of these assumptions are born from emotion, not from truth. And truth doesn't shift like emotions do. Truth doesn't change because someone left. It doesn't break because you're heartbroken. It doesn't fade when life gets dark. In fact, it's in the darkest places where truth becomes the most powerful. That's when you have to anchor yourself, not in how you feel, but in what you know. You may feel broken, but the truth is, you're still whole. You may feel forgotten, but the truth is, you're still chosen. You may feel defeated, but the truth is, you're still destined. Feelings are temporary weather patterns. They pass through, but they're not permanent. The problem is, most people set up camp in temporary emotional storms. Instead of letting the feelings pass, they build narratives around them. Nobody loves me. I'll never get over this. Something must be wrong with me. But these are not truth. They are lies wrapped in emotion, and the more you rehearse them, the more they start to feel real. But just because a lie feels true doesn't mean it is. You have to get in the habit of questioning your feelings. Not suppressing them, not denying them, but challenging them. Ask yourself, is this feeling based on truth or trauma? Is this emotion coming from what happened to me, or from who I really am? Is this pain reminding me of something I lost, or is it trying to keep me from seeing what I still have? When you start asking those questions, you begin to take back control. You stop being a victim of your own mind. You begin to lead yourself rather than be led by every emotional wave that hits you. There's a great power in observation. When you observe your feelings without becoming them, you create space. Space is where freedom lies. When you say, I feel unworthy, but then you stop and ask, why do I feel this way? What am I believing right now? You step outside the emotion. You're no longer drowning in it. You're watching it float by. That doesn't mean the pain disappears immediately, but it does mean it loses its grip on your identity. You stop saying, I am depressed, And you start saying, I'm experiencing depression, but that's not all of who I am. That subtle shift, just a small change in language, creates a massive change in mindset. Most negative feelings are rooted in the stories we tell ourselves. Stories about what we think we deserve, what we believe we lost, or what we assume we'll never have. But those stories are often outdated. They were built in a moment of fear, rejection, or failure, and instead of updating them, we rehearse them. We replay the same emotional loop over and over, not realizing that every replay keeps us trapped. But you're allowed to change the story. You're allowed to say, I used to feel unworthy, but now I see the truth. You're allowed to say, that pain hurt me, but it no longer defines me. You're allowed to choose truth over trauma, peace over patterns, growth over guilt. There's a version of you on the other side of every negative emotion, a version that's more grounded, more wise, more free, but you'll never meet that version if you believe your emotions are permanent. They're not. They're messengers. They show up to tell you something isn't in alignment. But once you've heard the message, you don't need to carry the feeling forever. Let it come, learn from it, then let it go. You are not your sadness. You are not your anger. You are not your anxiety. You are the awareness behind all of it, the one watching, learning, evolving. And when you ground yourself in truth, not in feelings, not in past wounds, not in emotional noise, you begin to rise. Not because life suddenly gets easier, but because you're no longer being dragged down by what isn't real. That's the beginning of emotional freedom. That's the shift from survival to purpose. Because now you're not reacting, you're responding. Now you're not trapped in your emotions, you're using them as tools. Now you're not afraid of how you feel, you're empowered by what you know. Pain has a strange way of convincing you that you're stuck. When life breaks your heart, when people walk away without warning, when circumstances shift faster than your ability to adapt, your soul starts to believe that this is the end of the story. It whispers lies to you in your lowest moments. This is permanent. You'll never get past this. Nothing will ever be the same. And the longer you sit in those thoughts, the more they begin to form your reality, not because they're true, but because your mind starts to align with the belief that change is impossible and healing is unreachable. But no matter how heavy the situation feels, you are never truly stuck. Growth is always available. Transformation is always within reach. And what you're going through right now is not where your story ends. It's where something new begins. You are not the same person you were before the pain, and that's a gift most people overlook. Pain stretches you. It opens parts of your soul that comfort could never reach. The lessons you learn in heartbreak, the wisdom born out of disappointment, the courage you develop through adversity, those things don't grow in sunshine. They're cultivated in storms. When everything you counted on falls apart, when the people you trusted turn out to be temporary, when the plans you held tightly unravel before your eyes, you are faced with a decision: to shrink and stay in the suffering, or to grow and rise into something greater. Growth is not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it looks like waking up and choosing not to let yesterday win. Sometimes it looks like forgiving people who never apologized. Sometimes it's choosing to speak kindly to yourself even when the voices in your head are full of shame. And other times it's simply continuing to show up, one small step at a time, without knowing exactly how it's all going to turn out. That is real power. That is transformation. It's not about having everything figured out. It's about moving anyway, healing anyway, believing anyway. When you believe that growth is still possible, something inside you shifts. The weight of your past loses its grip. The shame you carried begins to fall away. You start to realize that even though what happened to you was not your choice, how you respond to it still is. You cannot change the betrayal. You cannot undo the loss. You cannot reverse time and make someone love you the way you deserved. But you can choose what you do with the pain. You can choose to rise from it. You can choose to evolve because of it. You can choose to use it. Not to hurt yourself, but to heal yourself. Nothing in nature stays stuck. Trees lose their leaves and still bloom again. Rivers bend and reshape the land. The seasons shift without resistance. You too are designed to evolve. You are wired for renewal. But that process requires letting go of the lie that things must go back to how they used to be. The truth is, you're not meant to go back. You're meant to go forward. The goal isn't to become who you were before the pain. The goal is to become someone deeper, stronger, and wiser because of what you've endured. You didn't lose your power when you were hurt. You discovered where it truly lives. Real transformation doesn't begin when the pain stops. It begins when you stop running from it, when you stop pretending you're okay, when you stop blaming yourself for things that weren't your fault. That's when the real growth begins, not when the storm passes, but when you decide to dance in the rain. You begin to see your wounds not as evidence of failure, but as proof of survival. You begin to understand that brokenness is not the end, it's the birthplace of beauty, the starting point of strength. You begin to look at yourself in the mirror, not with shame, but with reverence. Because despite everything that tried to destroy you, you are still here. And not just here, you are evolving. This evolution doesn't need to be validated by anyone. You don't need applause to be worthy. You don't need recognition to be real. Your growth is sacred. Your healing is personal. And just because it doesn't look like someone else's journey doesn't make it any less powerful. Stop comparing your progress to someone else's highlight reel. Your strength is not measured in public posts. It's measured in the private moments when you chose not to quit, when you wiped your own tears, when you believed in something better even when the evidence wasn't there yet. You're not broken. You're breaking open. You're not failing. You're unfolding. And the more you embrace that truth, the less power your past has over you. You are not stuck. You are not finished. You are simply in transition. And transitions are messy, but they are necessary. They're the hallway between who you were and who you're becoming. And even though the hallway may be dark, the light is still ahead. The light is still calling you. Keep walking, keep growing. Keep believing that what's on the other side of this pain is a version of you that was worth every tear, every lesson, and every step forward. Sometimes the most damaging voice in your life isn't the one from the outside. It's the one inside your own head. That inner critic, that echo of old wounds, that relentless voice that tells you you're not enough, not loved, not worthy. It can be louder than any shout from the world. And if you're not careful, you'll start to believe it. You'll start to walk through life with your shoulders low and your head down, thinking your value is tied to your failures, that your past mistakes define your future potential. But there's a truth you need to remember, especially in the moments when your mind tries to turn against you. You are loved deeply, unconditionally, completely, and no failure, no mistake, no wound is strong enough to separate you from that love. The problem is, love has been misrepresented. Too many people have only known love that's conditional, love that's here one moment and gone the next. Love that depends on your performance, your behavior, your ability to keep everyone else happy. So when someone says you are loved, it doesn't always feel real. It feels like a cliché, like something people say but don't really mean. That's because you've seen love weaponized. You've seen it used as a reward or a punishment. And so now you second guess it, you question it, you don't trust it. And that doubt becomes a filter through which you view every relationship, every opportunity, every dream. But real love, true love, is not built on your ability to be perfect. It's built on your identity, on who you are, not what you do. If you want to overcome negative feelings, you must begin to speak to yourself from that place of truth. That means silencing the voice of the accuser inside you, the one that reminds you of every failure, every rejection, every time you came up short. That voice is not the voice of truth, it's the voice of fear. It's the echo of someone else's brokenness that was projected onto you. And the longer you allow it to speak unchecked, the deeper it digs into your identity. You've got to learn how to talk back to it. Not with more fear, not with more shame, but with love. Tell yourself, I am not the worst thing I've ever done. I am not the disappointment someone else claimed I was. I am not the rejection I experienced. I am not the abandonment I felt. I am not the depression I walked through. I am not the anxiety that tries to visit me. I am more. I am loved in my flaws, in my struggles, in my uncertainty. I don't have to perform to be valuable. I don't have to chase approval to be enough. I don't have to fix everything to deserve peace. I am loved, fully, freely, eternally. And that love is not weak. It is not fragile. It is not insecure. It is strong enough to carry every piece of me, even the ones I hide. And when that love begins to take root in your mind, the way you see everything begins to shift. You stop looking for approval from people who never truly saw you. You stop trying to earn validation through exhaustion. You stop begging for attention from those who can't even give it to themselves, because now you know who you are. Now you know what's inside you, and more importantly, now you know what you're connected to. You're connected to a source of love that is bigger than your past, stronger than your pain, and deeper than your understanding. Speaking love to yourself is not weakness, it's warfare. It's how you break the cycle of self-hate. It's how you disrupt patterns of internal abuse. It's how you take control of your story and start writing from a place of truth instead of trauma. Negative emotions don't just appear. They grow in silence. They grow when you don't confront them. But when you begin to affirm yourself daily, when you speak love to the parts of you that feel unworthy, when you remind yourself that you are not what happened to you, you begin to cut off the oxygen supply to those emotions. You begin to choke the power out of shame. You begin to dismantle the fortress that pain tried to build in your mind. Love must become your weapon, your shield, your language. Every time that inner voice tries to convince you that you're not good enough, answer it. Speak to it, correct it, and don't just whisper, declare it boldly, because the more you say it, the more your subconscious begins to accept it. Your mind was not made to be a dumping ground for doubt and despair. It was made to be a home for truth. So fill it with truth, speak it until it overflows, until the lies lose their grip, until the patterns break, until the emotions shift. Because when love becomes your internal language, healing becomes your lifestyle. And that kind of healing doesn't just change how you feel, it changes who you become. Forgiveness is one of the hardest things to give, especially when the wound runs deep and the pain feels fresh even after all this time. It's not easy to look at someone who hurt you, disappointed you, or abandoned you, and let it go. Not just the act, but the bitterness, the resentment, the thoughts of revenge, the mental replaying of the moment again and again like it's on loop in your soul. But holding on to that pain doesn't protect you. It imprisons you. It builds walls so high that even your peace can't climb over them. It creates emotional chains that keep you tethered to what happened while life moves on without you. And if you're not careful, unforgiveness will become the lens through which you see everything else, every relationship, every opportunity, every blessing. You will start to feel like nothing is pure, nothing is trustworthy, nothing is safe. Because when your heart is full of offense, your vision becomes distorted. What most people don't understand is that forgiveness is not weakness. It's not denial. It's not pretending what they did was okay. It's not saying the pain didn't happen. Forgiveness isn't approval of the wrongdoing. It's a declaration of freedom. You are not forgiving because they deserve it. You are forgiving because you deserve peace. You deserve to be whole again. You deserve to stop bleeding over people who didn't cut you. You deserve to stop waking up angry and going to sleep with heaviness in your chest. Forgiveness is a form of self-respect. It's saying, I will not allow what happened to steal any more of my life. You see, pain will always try to attach itself to your identity. It tries to convince you that because you were betrayed, you are unworthy. Because you were rejected, you are not lovable. Because you were hurt, you are broken. But forgiveness breaks that narrative. It says, yes, I was wounded, but I am not my wound. It says, yes, they failed me, but I am not defined by what they failed to give. When you forgive, you take the power back, not from them, but from the event, from the memory, from the emotions that have haunted you like shadows for too long. Some people carry unforgiveness like a badge of honor. They wear it like armor, thinking it will protect them from being hurt again. But all it does is isolate you from the love and joy you were created to experience. You build walls so thick that even the right people can't get in. You close your heart so tightly that not even healing can flow through it. Forgiveness doesn't mean you have to let people back into your life. It doesn't mean you have to trust them again. Forgiveness is about setting yourself free, not reopening the door to toxicity. You can love someone from a distance. You can release them internally while still creating boundaries externally. Forgiveness is an inside job. It's not a performance. It's a process. And sometimes you have to do it more than once. There will be days when you feel like you've finally let it go, and then something triggers the memory, and the pain resurfaces like it never left. That doesn't mean you failed. It means you're human. Healing is not linear. It's layered, and each layer brings you closer to peace, as long as you don't give up. Keep choosing forgiveness even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, because every time you choose to release that weight, your soul gets lighter. Your mind gets clearer, your emotions begin to stabilize, and little by little, you start to reclaim the parts of you that pain tried to destroy. Unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. The bitterness you carry doesn't punish them. It punishes you. It interrupts your sleep, your focus, your energy. It takes up space in your mind that was meant for vision and creativity. It hijacks your emotions and attaches your joy to someone else's apology. But what if they never apologize? What if they never acknowledge the damage they did? What if they're out there living their life like nothing ever happened? Are you going to stay stuck in a place they've already walked away from? That's the moment you realize forgiveness is not about fairness. It's about freedom. Fairness wants them to hurt like you did. But freedom says, I will no longer be a prisoner of this pain. That doesn't mean you forget what happened. It means you stop giving it power, you learn from it, you grow from it, you build boundaries because of it, but you no longer let it control you. You no longer let it live rent, free in your head, dictating your mood, your decisions, your relationships. True forgiveness brings clarity. It lifts the fog. It restores your ability to see yourself clearly again, not through the filter of trauma or betrayal, but through the eyes of love. You start to remember who you were before the pain. And more importantly, you begin to see who you're becoming because of the strength that pain uncovered. The scars are still there, but now they're reminders of your survival, not your shame. You look at your life and realize you're still here, not bitter, not broken, but wiser. Stronger, softer in the right places and tougher in the others. Because you chose the higher road, you chose the harder path, you chose to forgive.